Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Voice of the Valleys yet again with your host and friendly neighborhood far-right thug, Mr. George Cresswell. Hope we're all doing well. Realized in my last couple of interviews and videos I haven't been saying the nickname, so kind of loses its sting when Keir Starmer and the Labour Party are now saying the exact same things that people who are branded as far-right and all of these different things rather unjustly. They're saying the same things on issues like immigration and stuff like that now. Things that would have got them thrown in prison a little while ago that they're now saying because it's now more popular and they're being forced to. But I wanted to start off today's discussion, today's talk with this. So, because I reposted this. And it's in relation to, I want to go through another thing. It's going to be the main story pretty much of today, is going to be the uproar that has occurred in America and all over the world at the moment because the American federal government had the audacity to offer sanctuary to, I believe it was 59 Afrikaners. Now, Afrikaners are white South Africans, for those who may not know. They are white South Africans. And, sorry, gentlemen, I'm just reordering some of my tabs for what I want to talk about today. Yep, that'll do. Let's open up this post here. Okay, so these white South Africans, and it's pretty much common knowledge at this point that they are being persecuted for their race in South Africa. And they've been there for 500 years now, certainly a long enough period of time whereby they could have a certain level of ancestral claim to the land that they are on. Okay, they can trace their lineage back 15 to 20 generations, as Matt Walsh was pointing out on one of his recent shows. But somebody shared an image, and it's an AI-generated image of what would appear to be a family of 6 white females. And it's an AI-generated image, but inside the image, which I'm not sure how clear it's going to come across on this video. It took me a while to see it. It was very, very well hidden. But the person who created this and baited Matt into talking about this, sorry, I'm just looking at my phone, in a certain way. So the post he made, he said, quote, "There has been a giant psyop conducted for years to convince white people that they aren't native to their own homeland." Certainly been the case in the UK, where they're trying to say we're a nation of immigrants and all of this kind of stuff. Right? No, we're a nation of the people that made this land. Wales is named after the Welsh. England is named after the English. Ireland is named after the Irish. And Scotland is named after the Scots. Literally, you could put an S after T in Scotland and you get Scots land. Why? Because the Scots own the land. Okay, at least that's what it should be in theory. White South Africans have been there for 15 generations, and yet somehow they still don't count as native. White people have been in the Americas for 500 years, and yet somehow aren't allowed to call this our native land. It doesn't matter if your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather built a cabin on this land with his own hands, it still isn't your land. It's totally incoherent, but most white people accept this framing. And he quoted this post because somebody commented on it with this image I'm going to show you now. It says, "These people are native to Europe, not to Americas or Africa." Sounds like you need to Google what the word native means. But the image, ladies and gentlemen, that was shared, and some of you may clock onto what the subtle hinting at this image is very quickly. I didn't see it initially, and I did not, clock the under the surface meaning of this image, but this is the image that was shared. Now, some of you may be seeing that right away for what the poster has tried to make it out to be. If you don't see it yet, allow me to help you. Does that make it a little bit clearer? Does that make it a little bit clearer as to what the person was trying to hint at with this image? Now I'm going to play you back. I'm going to go back and show you the original image. And then you can see without that, you can probably see it a lot easier now, but it is very difficult to see. It is very, very difficult to see. But the thing that worries me a little bit is that Matt was baited into this, because if we have a look at this, for example, if we go into the quotes of this post, where is it? There's a account known as Gentile News Network. I would say there's an account known as Gentile News Network, and they posted saying that Matt Walsh is posting swastikas and you're blackpilling. You know, these people are of the very fringe minority of people who would identify with the very far right of politics, kind of nationalist, socialist, people who outright look up to Hitler, these kinds of people, okay, not good people. But so far, this post is still up on his page. He hasn't yet posted about it, you know, either realizing it as a mistake or rectifying it, whatever it might be. It's not a great look. In fairness, it's not a great look. I do believe very much so that Matt was baited into this and he did not see it, and maybe just yet, due to obviously he's a very busy man, obviously he may address it on his show at some point. It would be a good thing to address, because just in my opinion, these are not good people to be you know, associating yourself with, and also not being a useful idiot for these kinds of people as well, I think. But in relation to the wider story, so where it says, you know, Matt saying here, for example, people who look like that have been living in Americas for 5 centuries. If 5 centuries is not long enough to qualify as native, then how long do you need? If the answer is that your ancestors have to actually originate from the place, then nobody is native to anywhere. So where do you draw the line? This idea that, again, comes out of the, you know, Marxist oppressor versus oppressed, which later gave rise to things like critical race theory and even feminism and the trans agenda and all of these different agendas that have populated the liberal world at the moment, so to speak. But all of it is, again, oppressor versus oppressed, and people atoning, feeling that they have to atone or being made to atone for things that they did not do. Historic injustices is often the term that's used, and this is literally what the African National Congress is using for their excuse to engage in this ruthless persecution of the Boers. And I'm going to bring up another video in a moment to show you that this is really going on. So this was released. Charlie Kirk posted this yesterday. 2 days ago, sorry. I'm just going to turn my charger on. 2 seconds. Oh, wrong one. So Charlie Kirk posted this 2 days ago, and it's a letter from the African National Congress signed by somebody who's Malengi Bengu Motsiri. He's a national spokesperson for the African National Congress. And they labeled this, whatever's going on at the moment, because the Boers, make no mistake, are facing genocide in South Africa. They released this statement. I'm going to read you the paragraph before. I'm going to show you the paragraph after. I'm going to flash the entire document up on screen now, for those of you who are watching. But look at this down in the middle where it says here, this year, as we commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter, we recall its enduring truth that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. This is further enshrined in our Constitution, which affirms equality, dignity, and non-racialism as the bedrock of our national life. Now, that sounds great. That sounds great on the face of it. That sounds truly great on the face of it. But look at the next paragraph, the bit where he's highlighted in red here. What the instigators of this falsehood seek is not safety, but impunity from transformation. They flee not from persecution, but from justice, equality, and accountability for historic privilege. Okay? This is the exact same argument that people make in the UK at the moment to justify reparations, A, for slaves that we did not own, because I don't know about you, I've never owned a slave. I've never owned a slave. So I've never owned a slave. The last few generations of British people have never owned slaves. Not to mention that the British Empire was one of the premier forces in the abolition of the slave trade throughout the early and mid 1800s, all throughout the colonies. Not just spending money to buy slaves and then set them free, but also then spending manpower via going on ships and going patrolling all across the colonies to make sure that the abolition of the slave trade was being enforced. And people who were often demonized for having views that quote unquote justify slavery and all of these things, the premier people that were for the abolition of the slave trade were Christians, people like William Wilberforce. But no, because we at one point engaged in this evil practice, even though we haven't engaged in it for about, 200 and nearly 250 years. I think we passed the Abolition Act in 1803 or 1802. I believe we were one of the first. I don't think we were the first, but we were one of the first. And we were certainly the largest, I believe, the empire at the time to make that declaration. But we have to have accountability for historic privilege. We have to have accountability for historic privilege. And it says here, the misuse of refugee protections to shield right-wing anti-transformation elements is a violation of the spirit and letter of international law. That's what these lovely people like to use to hide behind, the international law and refugee protections. And as Matt pointed out, one thing he was correct about was that this has all just been a cover for replacement migration. It's all been a cover for the Great Replacement. Millions around the world face real persecution, and they are the ones deserving of sanctuary, not those offended by a democratic society working to redress past injustice. So that is the African National Congress's excuse for what they are doing. Now let me show you, ladies and gentlemen, why I would regard this as unreliable at best and just an outright sadistic evil lie at worst. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to hand you over to Mr. Julius Malema, and he is on the right-hand side of the screen that you're going to be seeing now. And have a listen to the things that Mr. Malema has to say about this issue.
Shoot to kill, Yamaza, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer, brr, pa, pa, shoot.
So let me repeat that for you, ladies and gentlemen. The true eloquence of Julius Malema here. Shoot to kill. And I believe he said something else I didn't quite understand. Kill the Boer, and the Boer means white South African. The farmer, which usually killing the farmers, not exactly very smart. If you don't want your society to starve to death, not very smart. And then proceeds to make a bunch of gun sounds. I'll play it for you one more time, ladies and gentlemen.
Shoot to kill, Yamaza, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor.
And look at the support they have.
The brr, pa,
Look how happy. There you go. Look how, I know it's a blurred image, but look how happy the expression is on his face of the idea of killing these white South Africans. And they mean it, ladies and gentlemen. They mean it. Because I'll allow you to watch this video now. So this video, ladies and gentlemen, is of a highway in South Africa. And I'll just let it play for you. I'm going to play it on mute because there's a really loud helicopter rotor sound in the background. But you can see, if you're watching the video along this line of cars, there's a massive line of crosses either side of this road. And just look how long this road goes. For those of you who are listening, not watching, they're split out by, I'm guessing, what would be a couple of meters on the ground. Obviously, I'm looking at this from the perspective of a helicopter. Literally, there's this massive single lane road, and literally as far as the eye can see, there is just a continuous unbroken line of on either side of the road of white crosses, and what they represent is Boers that have been killed in this effort just so far. Okay, in this systematic, well, you can only really call it an extinction effort against these people. And that's obviously why the Trump administration offered them safe harbor in the US, and tells you a lot when a lot of the people that were clamoring that we need to be more open to refugees and all stuff like this. The Episcopal Church, for example, in America had this agreement where they would, I believe, give some funding to help with resettling of refugees and stuff like this. Ended that agreement simply because the refugees in question, these Boers, were white. And that's the exact reason why they did it. And I'll show you that now. But here you go. If you needed more, ladies and gentlemen. If you need more, I've got another image for you that's going to be coming up on screen now. So the image coming up on screen now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the kind of stuff that we're talking about. You can see here, these are literal names on the crosses. So we have these white crosses. There's an entire field of them on the plasmod. So according to the person who posted this, we have murder rate per capita stats. We have 6.1 per 100,000 global rate. South Africa has 45 per 100,000. South African police officers at 60 per 100,000, and white farmers at 109 per 100,000. Politicians and mainstream media will say that it's a normal crime, and we know it's not. So all of these things have a date. For example, here there was somebody named Jeffrey, appears to be Zettel, or Zet, is it, I'm not sure how to pronounce this name. Another one here, Jaco Simon, 26th of June 2019. And this is ongoing. This is ongoing even today. This one here, 20th of May 2019. It's awful. It's awful what's going on. Truly, truly awful. And they literally call this the White Cross Monument. It tells you a lot where, if those stats are to be taken as correct, I know they cropped just off screen, 6.1 per 100,000 is the global average. And then you have white farmers in South Africa as 109 per 100,000. That's truly, truly horrifying stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Truly, truly horrifying stuff. Now, I'm going to find that video for you now, that due to the commitment to quote-unquote racial justice, the Episcopal Church said that they cannot support the resettling of refugees from South Africa simply because of their race. So I'm trying to find the clip that... Here it is. Here it is. I found it. It's only a 30-second clip. So this is, I believe, a representative for the Episcopal Church. He's a bishop, quote-unquote, Sean Rowe. And he says, it's against what we stand for to help white refugees fleeing South Africa. So I'm going to play this for you now, ladies and gentlemen. Just bear with me 2 seconds. I'm going to have Mr. Rowe here put it to you in his own words.
We can't be ourselves in the Episcopal Church and take the step of resettling white Afrikaners from South Africa. Our church has a long commitment to racial justice and reconciliation, and we have historic ties with the Anglican Church of South Africa. Desmond Tutu is a part of, been a partner in this work for us. So we're just not able to take this step. It's not in line with anything that we're about, and we can't be.
Fact of the matter is, if you're a third worlder with a certain level of skin pigmentation, no matter what your intentions are when you get to the country that you're going to, no matter what you're planning on doing there, no matter your reasons for going there, if you have a certain skin pigmentation to where you can be perceived as a victim, then you'll be taken in with open arms. And anybody that says anything against that, when, you know, rapes take place, murders take place, you know, even said people fleeing an ethnic cleansing just because they have, or fleeing a genocide even, just because they have the wrong skin color, you will not be helped by the Episcopal Church. For record as well, for the record, here's a little bit about what the Episcopal quote-unquote church stand for. So I think it's very hard for them to even try and masquerade as a church anymore when they're posting things like this. So as I said, the Episcopal Church, fake church. They're a church of a leftism, one might say. So for those of you who aren't watching but are listening, this is an Episcopal Church, quote unquote, and outside they're quite clearly showing that they adore many other things, such as the pride flag, over, you know, actual Christian symbols and Christian values, so to speak. This is what the church stands for. This is what the Episcopal Church, quote unquote, that seems to take all of the key teachings of Christianity. Like, it tells you a lot. When there's a lot of schism between, say, the Orthodox and Catholic and Protestant sects, is that mainly with regards to the Catholic and Orthodox faiths, is that they both tend to be aligned in completely disavowing this kind of stuff, right? This kind of stuff, which is quite clearly a complete inversion of everything that the church is meant to stand for. But that's why you can take what Mr. Sean Rose said, chuck it in the bin. I'm glad that these refugees were able to be resettled, and it tells you a lot. Another post I saw on this was that it's great how MAGA is for mass migration when it's whites, right? Cedric says hi, by the way. I don't know if you can see that. Cedric says hi. Since when did 60 or 59, however many it was, refugees, families, people there with children, their children whom they're trying to protect, count as mass migration? When they were saying there was no border problem when about 15,000 were crossing the US southern border every single day. Truly, truly horrifying. Truly, truly horrifying stuff. But that's where we are with that. So we'll see how the Trump administration moves forward with helping out the Afrikaners that are facing genocide in their native land. What we're going to go into now is a bombshell that dropped. Why won't this pause? Give me 2 seconds, guys. Sorry, guys, my thing was playing up then. I was trying to load the next video that I wanted to go through. It wouldn't pause, and then the audio was getting on my nerves because it kept playing, and the video wouldn't pause, ready for me to play it in a bit. So the next bombshell I wanted to go through and why I think the case for immigration of any kind, don't care where they're coming from, to be completely honest, is getting weaker and weaker by the day. If you live in Wales, this should be of massive, massive concern to you. Okay, this should be of humongous concern to you. This happened in Liswery High School, which is just down in Newport. Okay, now be warned, ladies and gentlemen, the video you're about to see is quite distressing. It is a video of a young boy that is getting the shit beaten out of him by a group of what appears to be at least somewhat composed of migrant teens. But there is one person in particular, a person who appears to be Lucas Ziga, or Lucas Ziga, however you say his name. And he is, as far as I'm aware, this person, this young boy, if I have a look at David Atherton's post, he, I believe, is either mildly like autistic or some kind of, difficulty, some kind of mental difficulty, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. I've seen people say that. I can't find the post that said it. So don't quote me. Don't quote me on that. But either way, this is a young boy, a teenager of Liswery High School in Newport. And this migrant, appears to be Lucas Zigas, is holding him in place so that this group of youths can assault him. So this is an adult person you think would have child welfare first thing on their mind. But no, this is a person that in this video is going to be holding a child in place so that a bunch of other children can beat the shit out of him. Here we go. There he is. So I'm just gonna, there you go. So you can see they're all starting to lay into him. Fair play to him, he's trying to fight back. There's a younger, an older kid here, obviously. So a lot of these kids could be in the same age group as him, but there's a good 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's about 6 or 7, excluding Lucas himself, and then he pushes him and throws him away. God bless the kid for trying to fight. God bless him. Let me show you that again, ladies and gentlemen, so this really sinks in. So here you go. This is the part in question. So right there, if you're looking on screen, this is where Lucas makes contact. If it is him. This is where he makes contact. Here's one of the boys who's about to begin the assault now as well. So whatever's going on, Lucas here, theoretically somebody that should be the adult in the situation, has grabbed hold of this child and is now prohibiting his escape. It then is not long after that he drags him into the group of boys. He's trying to resist, drags him into the group of boys, and boom, there's the first salvo. So it wasn't the young boy that started it. It wasn't the British boy or the Welsh boy here that started it. The first salvo was through by this young boy here. So we have Lucas, grabs the boy, boom, and then the first salvo's thrown. Then he starts trying to fight back. So let's count them. Lucas, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have another 1 or 2 off screen. So that's 5 to 6. 7, 8. The person recording it is 9. So we have about 10 people thereabouts on this one person. Now listen.
You see? No more time for these kids. I promise.
That's not a Welsh accent, and that is not obviously the Welsh language either, but that is obviously not a Welsh accent. As far as I know, Lucas is Slovenian. I'm not sure what the other descent is of the other children involved, but it's quite simple. These savages should not be in our country. These people should not be in our country. Especially, you know, Lucas, who you think would, being an adult, would, you know, have a little bit of a concern for child welfare, but evidently not. The school did make a statement. So the school labelled it the incident after school today, Wednesday the 14th of May 2025. Good afternoon. We are aware of a serious incident that took place after school, pardon me, today involving some of our learners. Rest assured it has been reported to the police and we will ensure a full investigation is carried out in cooperation with the police and local authority. I certainly hope that they do a good job. I certainly hope that they fully investigate this. Certainly hope that that justice is done. Given the state of the justice that we have in this country, however, and talking about the UK as a whole there, I don't exactly hold out much hope. But these people shouldn't be here. It's as simple as that. These people shouldn't be here. Patrick Christie's the person who posted this video, posted a tremendous video also that I'm also going to bring up now. I wasn't originally going to bring it up, but it's, you know, again, the case for immigration growing weaker and weaker every single day. Where he recently went out to Calais, and interviewed some of the migrants, some of the third world migrants that are going to Calais so that they can then begin their venture to the UK, so that they can, again, people don't want to admit it, but this is the case, so that they can receive all of the lovely benefits. So that's all they're coming for. Because they're coming from France. France is a safe country. France has been full, is perfectly safe. Maybe not for French people. But this is them literally saying the quiet part out loud. We're literally one of the only phrases that this African, believe it or not, that this African, I believe it is, I believe that he is rather, one of the only phrases he knows how to say in English is give me. Give me.
Why should English people pay for you to have a house?
Maybe they give me house, they give me anything I can need, they give me.
Just give it.
Yeah.
Why?
Just give it. And he's about to ask a good question. Why? Why should we? In this case, it's English. Why should any of us? We never asked for this. I'm sorry. We never caused the problems that these people are facing. You know, as I said before, I never owned slaves. I don't know about you. I never owned slaves. I never participated in the slave trade or any of these historic injustices or any of the injustices that go on about in the world today. You know, I'm not one of the supposed white farmers that needs to give up the land or be forcefully driven off it and be killed. By the way, the stories of the Boers, going back to that again, truly horrendous stuff. Rapes occurring on the daily. I read a story one time of a young child being drowned in hot acid. Truly, truly stomach churning stuff that's going on out there at the moment. But this is the attitude of people coming. This is the attitude of a lot of people coming across. A lot of people are coming through multiple safe countries from their country of origin simply because the benefit system is so good. They could stop in France. They could stop in Germany. Why are so many of them trying to get specifically to Britain? Because they know that they'll be put up in taxpayer-funded accommodation and everything will be taken care of them when they get here, far more than really anywhere else.
Because people in England is perfect.
Oh,
We have it perfect. We have it perfect. It doesn't matter that, you know, everything in terms of our public services are falling apart. Doesn't matter that, you know, whatever you want to say, you know, health services, road services, all of these things, schools, everything is falling apart and ripping by the seams because of the weight that's being posed on it by immigration. No, we have it perfect. We have it perfect. Of course we do. Did you check your white privilege today?
so you think we're all rich people?
Yeah.
So we can give. Okay. Yeah. Can I tell you something?
Okay.
We are not all rich people. If.
Yep, exactly. Exactly, we aren't. And we're being rapidly impoverished more and more and more every day by design. Of course, you can't expect this gentleman to see that. He's coming across, he might be coming across with the best of intentions, trying to get a shot at a better life or whatever. But it's not our problem. It's not our problem, and it shouldn't be our problem. At the end of the day, we've got so many problems at home at the moment where immigration has been a prime factor. The level of immigration has been a prime factor. Before we can do anything else, it's like Jordan B. Peterson says, you need to, tidy your room before you try to go fixing the world, right? I'm sorry, our room, analogous to the country, analogous to every single country in the UK and the overall country of the UK as a whole, is a fucking mess right now. And we need to fix that before we can go about fixing anything else. But make sure you always say refugees welcome, unless they're white South Africans. Now, this is a world exclusive that came out 2 days ago at time of recording. It is the first time that video footage has come out of Epstein's island. So Epstein, obviously very prolific sex trafficker and pedophile, likely has a lot of very compromising information on a lot of prominent world figures, you know, actors, politicians, you know, prime ministers, presidents, all many, many powerful people. People have died making accusations. Royals, obviously, is another big one, as we'll see in a moment. But recently, not too long after Virginia Giuffre died under very mysterious circumstances, James O'Keefe has recently come out and released this video. So James O'Keefe is the CEO of O'Keefe Media Group and was with Project Veritas, but there was a very public split that occurred. A lot of bad blood, as far as I'm aware. Don't really know the full, never looked into the full story between the two. But James O'Keefe's making waves at the moment because he is managing to do a lot of good via his use of undercover journalists, and I've got the scoop on so many things with regards to government corruption in the US, vaccine manufacturers, all of these different things. And it's really forcing the hand, as far as I can tell, of people like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, who seem to, for all of their words and for all of their efforts up to this point, seem to be doing a lot of sitting on their hands and not doing anything. I'm not telling them how to do the job, obviously, or anything like that. They have very, very hard jobs to do. But ultimately, it wasn't us that set up Vindicated and made it seem as though the Jeffrey Epstein case was being used as a political football, again, just like it'd been used in presidential campaigns past, you know, where they're calling themselves the most transparent administration in history, whereas Kash Patel said everything was going to be released on day one. The FBI headquarters in New York was going to be turned into a museum, and you know, obviously that last part was hyperbolic language. But if you're going to say that you're going to release the Epstein files on day one, if you're going to make something if you're going to make a statement like that about something which people see as so important for world security, then you better just not be throwing that out there. You better not just be throwing that out there. We'll wait and see. But it does seem that people like James are forcing their hand, forcing them now to come out with a lot more of it. Because his footage has been released, first time ever, from inside Jeffrey Epstein's private island mansion. And there was, in the kitchen, which is where this video was taken, there's quite a disturbing image on the wall, which, given the context of what's going on, is very, very suspect with the kind of people that were going there and the kind of things that they may have thought, given the things that they are accused to have done. But we're going to go over this now so you can see James making a lot of breakthroughs in this regard. He's putting himself in the crosshairs of a lot of very powerful people. So we need more people like James. He's really sticking his neck out there. But here's the footage from that, ladies and gentlemen. You'll see the picture I'm referring to in a moment, but let's go.
O'Keefe Media is releasing never-before-seen footage from inside the buildings on Jeffrey Epstein's island. The island, known as Little St. James, is located in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Drones have flown overhead in the past, independent journalists have snuck ashore, but no footage or images from inside these buildings has ever been published until now. This footage was captured about a year after Epstein's arrest. In this world-exclusive, O'Keefe Media Group takes you through the kitchen inside the main mansion, a villa used for hosting high-profile visitors and events. Through our reporting, we can confirm this footage is authentic. You'll see the entire kitchen is a sterile white with stainless steel appliances.
So again, this is the kitchen. This is the thing I'm going to be talking about in a moment. Well, given this is Jeffrey Epstein's residence, given the kind of people that would have come here and the things that they were accused of doing, this is the bit that's going to, really be suspect and kind of disturbing in a little bit as to why that thing is there. But I'll go through that in a moment. For those of you who are listening and not watching, if this was just a regular kitchen, this would just be something you'd look at and it looks like a really nice kitchen, right? All of the appliances seem to be, brand spanking new. It's very bright. It's very white, in the color, which can be, almost, I would imagine like walking into here might be almost kind of painful on the eyes with the lights as well. The lights seem very, very bright, but it's like this nice sort of like roof that goes up to a point, and it looks just like a really nice modern kitchen, very expansive. If you had this kitchen in your house, people would think that you were very well off, right? Because of the size of it, because of the appliances, because of the way it's upholstered. So yeah. If you didn't know this was Jeffrey Epstein's island's kitchen, you'd think this was just a really nice kitchen. But let's get on to the bit that's really, really suspect. I'm not really sure James has the best read on this, whether we're looking a bit too much into the picture itself. But given it's Jeffrey Epstein, again, anything is possible at this point.
There are sparse decorations, including a few pieces of coral, but there does appear one prominent artwork, a large framed photo of a nude baby in a sink. The baby is holding a phallic-shaped object.
Now, that's where I think that, again, making that draw, because it's Jeffrey Epstein, you could very well make the case, depending on who, we don't know whose baby this is, we don't know who took the photo, we don't know where this came from, at least I don't anyway. You could make that argument, but this, from what I've seen, somebody put in the comments, this is at least around the time that this photo would have been taken. Obviously, you can tell it's taken on an old camera, but and the decor at the time looks a lot older. The sink looks very old. It looks very like 90s or 80s when this photo would have been taken. This image up here, I believe, is a Picasso artwork, so maybe that is some kind of clue as to where the photo may have came from. I don't know. But this toy in particular, as far as I'm aware, somebody put in the comments, it was... if around that would have been the time this photo would have been taken, it's not an uncommon toy that would have just been on the market at that time. So again, it does have a very suspect shape, obviously. Maybe that's just, again, more so saying the way toys were manufactured at that time and how things are marketed towards kids in that way. But again, to go straight for that when it was a very, very common... we don't want to discredit it. We don't want to make this unnecessarily easy to discredit by trying to draw things that necessarily aren't there. This could just be an innocent photo, family photo of a, it could just be a family in an American home, say somewhere, with this toy, and it's just a nice photo of when their child was a baby. It's the fact that it's in Jeffrey Epstein's kitchen on his private island where these horrific, heinous crimes took place, and so many powerful, influential figures would have went and dined in this kitchen, been entertained by Jeffrey and associates in this kitchen, that would have seen this image, and then God knows what they would have thought. That's where this gets really, really sinister, in my opinion, at least. It's just, the photo in itself, if this was, it'd be a bit of a weird photo for somebody to have, but my mom and dad, for example, have photos of me when I was in the bath, when I was a kid, just having fun playing in the bath, right? We have photos like that. Not all uncommon at that time, but it's the fact that this is now in the hands and in possession and on the residence, the private residence that was used for the sexual abuse of minors predominantly, in the kitchen, where this is just like, no, this is messed up. And it just makes you think, what was Jeffrey thinking when he looked at this image? What were the people that he was entertaining thinking when they looked at this image? Truly, truly disgusting.
The image is hung above the kitchen table. It begs the question, why did Jeffrey Epstein choose to place this image inside of a kitchen where visitors would eat, cook, and entertain? The publication of this footage comes on the heels of a report last week of a royal fixer admitting Prince Andrew had sex with underage girl.
So this is John Bryan. So this is why I said O'Keefe Media Group, undercover journalists, they're exposing things that never ever would have been exposed before. When these people are speaking in this way, they're speaking candidly. They're speaking with people that they believe that nothing is going to leave the table, okay? They're not saying this because they know they're on video, okay? And you know, people, when they know they're being videoed, they'll say things differently or they won't say things, okay? That's why undercover journalism is so important. That's why in Tommy Robinson's Silenced documentary, for all those people that give him shit for releasing it and saying that he should be in prison because he went against contempt of court and all of these things. Oh, he's saying that, but he did unearth the cover-up that was going on. The fact that I believe it was Huddersfield Council were paying people like Jamal Hijazi's staffer and the head teacher of the school 5-figure sums not to tell people certain details or the truth about the incident involving Bailey and Jamal, that Jamal was misbehaving and assaulting kids and all of these things. You know, without the undercover aspect of that, you would never have heard that. You'd have never have seen that, because these people, they obviously signed the agreement to where they would not say that. They would not come out and publicly say that. So when you're catching people in this manner, when it's undercover, when they're speaking candidly in an environment where they think they're not being watched, they're not being heard, they're not being recorded, we can then lend extra credibility. It's what brought down the New York Mafia families at the end of the day, is when they were speaking in private residences, caught on tape. You think about it, the bugs that they put in, like the Ravenite Club in New York when they were trying to sting John Gotti, and then they went upstairs to Mrs. Sorelli's apartment. And that's where they eventually got the really good tapes that put him away. That bug basically is an undercover FBI agent. It's recording the conversation. Whereas in this one, we happen to have video as well. But in that one, you had audio. They're speaking candidly. They're speaking in a way that they're open because they don't believe they're being listened to by anybody else other than people that are in that room. And so they'll speak openly. Loose lips sink ships. And this might just be the thing that sinks the Prince Andrew ship. We'll see.
And also after a report last week on Attorney General Pam Bondi.
Yeah, and it's all with little kids.
So this is what I mean now. You have Pam Bondi, United States Attorney General. She's now aware that there are tens and thousands of videos and it's all with little kids. Now, presumably, she would have at least had to have somebody verify that to her. So in order for somebody to verify that, they would have then had to go do the horrific mission of viewing this material and pray for their souls and pray for their minds, because I can only imagine what was on these tapes, you know, on these videos. But again, we know about this, so why are they not coming out with it? They know about this, why are they not coming out with it? Why are they coming out with this weird 1-of-3-piece binder with these conservative influencers that just does nothing but discredit them to a large extent? DC Drano, Libs of TikTok, Jack Posobiec, a lot of these people I quite like. You know, I've retweeted tons of DC Drano and Jack Posobiec and Libs of TikTok in the past, but this was not the way to do it. This was really not the way to do it. It really stitched them up and ruined their credibility, because it made them look like, even if the media, as they said, were there for the meeting between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer that was at the same time, even if that was true, it's still, at that point, the images have been done. There's the iconic shot of Ronan holding that binder up, and it says on the front of it, the most transparent administration in history. I'm like, a lot of us thinking it's translucent at best, and it does seem to be that you know, people like James O'Keefe are really holding their feet to the fire and forcing them to come out with this stuff, because America and the world deserve to know because of how many people were harmed by this and how much it's affected the geopolitical situation and all of our security as just private citizens of our own nations because of the geopolitical ramifications it's had.
Since those reports aired, we've received an uptick in outreach and tips, and we've heard from these sources that they don't trust anybody due to the lack of transparency and accountability in the United States government. We increasingly find ourselves in a circumstance where none of the criminals in the most powerful institutions in America are held to account for anything. And yet I report to you today, the truth always finds a way, and courage begets courage, which we know is happening as a result of these reports, because people are coming forward to us.
He said this, I mean, it was very, very important. The truth always does find a way. The truth does. The truth will find a way. Make no mistake about it. The truth will find a way. It's a common phrase that I use, particularly when I'm dealing with, my clients or people that I'm talking to about certain topics, whatever it might be. I've said it on my other podcast as well. When influencers, fitness influencers, just go out there and peddle nonsense. Pardon me. A lie can make its way all the way around the world before the truth has even finished lacing up its boots. But when the truth comes, because of courageous people that are willing to speak it and willing to put their lives on the line for it in many instances, it comes like a fucking tidal wave. It comes like a tsunami, like an apocalypse for these people that want to cover up for the evil that has been done and the evildoers themselves. It is like an apocalypse for them. And it will fucking rain down with force. And it will, leave no stone unturned eventually, because when momentum starts to get going, it's like the snowball rolling down a hill. It starts off very slow and very small, but it gathers mass and gathers speed very, very quickly. Before you know it, you've got this massive boulder that is impossible to stop. And if anything gets in its way, it is just being absolutely careened through. And that is the truth once it gets going. And I think this is just the start. This is just the start. I think we'll keep people updated as we go forward. But now I want to go on to the last couple of things for today, last couple of minutes. Rupert Lowe, as you may know, has been involved in a legal battle with ConformUK. And the Met Police, as of yesterday, confirmed that they were dropping their investigation into false allegations that he made against the Reform Party chairman, Mr. Zahir Yusuf. So he made a full statement. I'm going to read that for you now, ladies and gentlemen, because he, over the course of this, when he's been protesting his innocence and he's been proved right at every single turn, he has not pulled his punches. And even that, and he left a comment on Isabel Oakeshot's post yesterday, where she was going on about the dead Tory party, going on about all this infighting in reform and all of this stuff. Well, have you know, there's no infighting and all of this stuff, right? And Rupert Lowe commented on it being like, you guys tried to ruin my life and assassinate my character because I did question your messiah. You think people wouldn't have problems with that? I literally called him a messiah. And it's certainly becoming more and more clear that Nigel Farage is just in it for himself, at least in my opinion. And he's certainly a very dangerous individual. From what I've seen with regards to what Reform UK's plans are in Wales, from what I can tell, they have some things that I agree with, maybe some things that I don't. I haven't had a chance to do a full deep dive into it yet, but I'm going to read you Lowe's statement now in the wake of the Met Police dropping the investigation against him. This was not normal political infighting. It was a sinister attempt to weaponize the criminal justice system against me, putting not just my political future, but my liberty at risk. All because I dared to raise constructive criticisms of Nigel Farage, stood firm on deporting illegal migrants and pushed for reform to be run democratically, not as a vehicle to stroke one man's ego. How did reform respond? With a brutal smear campaign. For the sin of asking legitimate questions about the party's direction, policies and leadership, I was vilified and targeted. I am ashamed to have shared a parliamentary platform with them. I am ashamed to have trusted them. Ashamed to have called them friends. Farage is no leader. He is a coward and a viper. I feel deeply embarrassed that I ever thought he was the man to lead. It's my view that the police process was weaponized to silence a party colleague who raised reasonable concerns. If Farage were ever to control the vast power of the British state, I believe he would not hesitate to do to his adversaries what they have tried to do to me. With real power, I fear he would wield that immense responsibility to crush dissent, as he's done time and time again over the years. Tells you a lot when Rupert has been very hard right now on the issue pretty much solely of illegal immigration, and many more people, particularly on the right, the more conservative side, the more nationalist side of politics, have been making the case that it's not just illegal immigration that's a problem. If anything, that's only a smaller problem compared to the levels of legal immigration that we have to the UK. And Rupert has been kind of quiet on that front at the moment, okay? He seems to be pushing himself more and more in that direction, which we will see. He sort of alluded to it in some post, where I think he made comment of like, in order for the damage to be undone, at least for a while, more people need to leave than come here. Again, we're getting there, but it tells you a lot that all of this happened when he was just raising the question about illegal immigration, not about legal immigration. He was just raising about illegal immigration, and this is how Reform treated him. And you think they're anything but the establishment. How can you not think they're anything but the establishment at this point? It's a good thing that it come out sooner so that we have time to pivot and we have alternatives that we can put in place. Maybe get behind another party that's certainly more conservative, more nationalist, right? But to think that Reform are any kind of adversary to the establishment is complete nonsense, at least in my opinion. Especially when you see Keir Starmer crossing the floor of Parliament a few months ago to go and speak to Nigel Farage, and they're speaking like the best buddies. They seem to be laughing, smiling, joking with each other. It's all one big club. None of us are invited. Nigel Farage is just the other side of that same coin, except the coin is like Two Faces coin and it's rigged. Okay, they're both heads. Smearing my innocent staff in a pathetic attempt to attack me was disgusting, alongside briefings to journalists from senior Reform figures suggesting that I had dementia. The lowest, vilest tactics I have seen in my 67 years. They are not fit to lead, they are not fit to be MPs. Please listen when I say this. For the good of our country, Nigel Farage must never be Prime Minister. To the millions of decent Reform supporters, you must do what you believe is right. I personally could not remain in an organisation led by such men. They do not deserve your support, your time, your energy, your money, or your vote. I urge you to do what you think is right. When the time soon comes, we will work together to advance a political movement that is credible, professional, decent, democratic, and honest. There will very soon be an alternative to the rotten leadership of Reform. And to those of you who have supported me during this incredibly difficult period, thank you. I have been touched by your messages of kindness. Without your support and without my social media platforms, I would have been buried by this Mears. I truly mean it. Thank you. You'll be hearing a lot from me very soon. That's the end of his statement. So, pulling no punches, even though they're saying they are not fit to even be MPs. Obviously, Lee Anderson was one of the biggest ones to come out and trash Rupert, despite his own lack of parliamentary conduct and people making complaints against him. And obviously he removed the whip from Rupert Lowe. He takes a lot of pride, seemingly, in calling himself Chief Whip. That's what he calls himself, right? Will he remove the whip from himself for the lack of parliamentary conduct or parliamentary misconduct that he was engaged in? I highly doubt it. So that's where we are with the Rupert Lowe Reform saga. Reform have had egg on their face at every single turn. Sadly, it does seem as though they're gaining more traction. People just don't want to see it. They're taking in by the cult of personality of this Farage yet again, as we all were previously, myself included. And yeah, very, very sad to see. Very, very sad to see. Now, we're going to be rounding this out in a moment. The one thing I want to leave you with, ladies and gentlemen, is an ominous warning based on something which I talked about before. And that is, this was in Australia. But I've shown that this happened in a Santander branch in the UK also. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, we need to do everything that we can to protect things that ensure our freedoms as much as possible. Okay? If the previous generation had protected their right to bear arms a lot more, maybe we wouldn't be in such a predicament now. We need to protect our right to our money. And it does seem that the banks, and this is why this bank is going to be the cancellation for today, pretty much, if we're going to call it that. I don't know if this podcast ends up taking off a little bit more and get a lot more popular. I don't know if I'll end up being served with a bloody trademark notice for that or something. But I want people to be aware of what's going on with this bank. So this is in Australia. This is just a man that allegedly, or seemingly from what I've heard, just wanted to withdraw his money. Jim Ferguson has reported on this. He's reported this video, making the case again that we need to be strongly against things like central bank digital currencies and social controls, because things like this will inevitably happen. This man wanted to withdraw $5,000 from the bank and they would not let him. Very similar to the dad who wanted to withdraw, I believe it was £2,000 from a Santander branch not too long ago to buy his son a motorbike, and they would not authorize the withdrawal unless he could somehow prove that's what he wanted to use it for, when it's none of the bank's business. None of the bank's business whatsoever. Not to mention, he was being informed that this was the policy, not even by a British person. Okay, by British I mean ethnic British person. Anyway, point being, and the reason I bring that up is because we literally have the case now where foreigners are telling us what we can and can't use our money for in many instances. That's not okay. That's not okay under any circumstance. Right, so anyway, I'm really annoyed by this little tuft of hair that keeps sticking out of the back of my hair. This one here keeps sticking out of the back. It's very annoying. And it makes me look kind of ridiculous. But anyway, see, you can see it at the back there. You can see it there. It keeps fucking sticking up for some reason. Anyway, this was a man that's being manhandled out of a bank by about 7 police officers simply because he wanted to withdraw his own money, mind you. And that's why we need to keep cash alive, because otherwise your money is not your money.
Look at this. Like a rainbow man. Oh,
so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But there's about 13 or 14 police officers here. Many heavily armed, seemingly. This looks like a firearm here. Might be a taser. I'm not sure which one it is. But look at this. They're absolutely manhandling him out of the bank. And it says here, all he wanted was his cash. Bank said no.
like a rainbow man. Oh,
Now, obviously,
shit.
and you can hear the guy in the background calling them pigs, and again, they wonder why they have these reputations when they're acting in this way. Now, when he's in the bank, if he's being told that he can't withdraw his money for whatever reason, he might be then getting violent, he might be then getting aggressive, he might be doing all these things which, you know, we could argue he shouldn't be doing. But at the end of the day, this is why we have to do what we can to make sure we stop ourselves from ever getting into these kinds of situations. Can't ever have these things happening. Because we shouldn't be leaving the door open for things like this to potentially be happening. How do we do that? By making sure that we keep cash alive, by making sure that our money stays our money. It's not the bank's money, it's our money. And making sure that we do that as best as possible. We'll be taking money out of the banks and going back to paying things by cash and installments. Like I remember when I was a kid that my mom every single week or every single, by the way, ma'am, by the way, if you're not from this area, if you're not from Britain, or if you're not from, you know, this part of Wales in particular, ma'am is an affectionate word for mother. Okay, that's what we say. We refer to them as ma'am. So, you know, mum or mom, if you're, you know, that way inclined, it all means the same thing. It all means the same thing. But she'd be back and for the mortgage company. I believe it might have been Santander, actually. No, I don't think it was. I don't know if the mortgage company's around anymore. The office that she was going to is not around anymore. But it seemed like every single week, or at least once a month, but, you know, we get picked up from school and then over to the office. She'd have to pay it, and then we go back home. And I remember always complaining because I'd want to go home and I don't know, just do nothing or whatever. But yeah, no, maybe we got to go back to that. Maybe we got to go back to we're staying away from this electronic system where the cashless agenda, we're completely going against it. Ultimately, something's going to have to be done, and we're probably going to risk some persecution like this gentleman with that. But at least for now, that's probably the way it's going to have to be. It's a sad situation we've allowed ourselves to fall into. We were, you know, when this was first coming out, they were trialing things like this on us in school. In school in Wales in particular, the comprehensive school I went to, in year 7, partway through year 7, they were going away from, and this just shows how insidious, thinking back to it now, they were creeping this in at the time. They were moving to a system whereby you would put a certain amount of money in a machine, and it would be linked to your fingerprint. And then that would be how you pay for it, with your fingerprint. And we thought this was super cool. You know, kids not knowing any better. I would have been 10 or 11 at the time. Kids not knowing any better what this would later on be used for. But they were trialing it on us in schools when they brought the system in. They brought it in, they called it the cashless system. That's literally just what they called it. They said we're moving to a cashless system. But you'd bring your money in, at the front of the canteen would be this machine that would take your money, and it would be linked to you. You put your fingerprint on put your finger on the scanner, register as you put the money in, and then that would be linked to your balance. Now just imagine Just imagine if when you put that money in, and that's how you're able to pay for your food and stuff like that, right? Imagine then just going one step further and linking that, your ability to pay for things, to your political opinions. And you see the end goal. You see how the weaponization of the system is going to take hold. And you see how they sowed the seeds for that all the way back when we were children. And we've got a lot of things to unlearn. I hope you start unlearning that now with me, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you all very much, as always, for tuning in to Voice of the Valleys. Hope to catch up with you very, very soon. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are. Make no mistake, we will make this nation great again. Adios. Actually, no, I'm not going to say adios. I'm not going to say adios at all. I'm going to leave today with traditional Welsh departing phrase of Hoyle. So, Hoyle Fawr, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you next time.